Hello and welcome to another managerial special from the On Sport podcast. I'm Craig Savage. Next to me is Mr. Daniel Cody. And today we're talking about Barnsley, who have appointed Markus Schopp as their new head coach from TSV Hartberg in Austria. Let's start off with that because he replaces Valerien Ismael, who went to West Brom, and it's another unknown name to the English game, Daniel Cody.
Absolutely, but it's a fairly familiar production line now for Barnsley, isn't it? Is take unknown managers from other leagues, and on the last two occasions, Austria, and try and give them a chance of succeeding in the English game. I think, let's be honest, before we talk about Markus Schopp, it's going to be virtually impossible to replace and replicate the job Valerien Ismael did, because that was just right person, right time, perfect season, perfect tactics. Everything worked and fell into place. Best loan signing we've seen in the season in January for me, Daryl DK. There is a lot of work for Markus Schopp to do, but for as many fans that, and I've seen the odd one already on social media in the few minutes before this with who's this, we don't know much about him. There is generally a lot of trust from the Barnsley fans because the last three have all been relatively unknown names and they've all been names that have done really well in Ismael, Struber and Stendel before that. So I don't think any panic from the Barnsley fans comes from not knowing the name particularly well. He's had a good playing career. He's overachieved with Hartberg from what we've seen. So I think we've got to be positive about it because Barnsley have very rarely got these appointments wrong.
Exactly right. And Barnsley finished in the playoffs last season. And most people would say, and we all, so they did overachieve last season. It was a fantastic job that Ismael done. Do you think it would be a bit of a reality check for them now? Because do you think they're hopefully not expecting to be up there in the playoffs again?
Well, this is my worry, to be honest, for this manager or anyone who'd come in as a head coach, I should say. Do fans, and does the board more importantly, realistically think that Barnsley are going to be favourites to be in playoff contention next season? Because if they do, this man has got a very slim chance of succeeding, as has any other head coach or manager who comes in. You have to accept to an extent that the stars have aligned. And I say that even as a Luton fan, for us finishing 12th last year, I think that was stars aligning as well. And we're obviously clubs that have had a similar trajectory in recent years. So I don't think that can be the expectation. I hope it's not. And the fact that he's been given a 3-year deal would suggest that it's not. The fact that they've lost key players from it as well, or they relied on some on loan. And let's be honest with Valerien Ismael, he came in when Barnsley were fighting a relegation scrap very early in the season. He shored them up, made them defensively really solid. They won loads of games by the odd goal. And that's the sort of thing that can go wrong quite quickly. We saw it with Sheffield United in the Premier League last season. If you're winning every game by one goal, it only takes the goals to dry up or one end of the pitch to go wrong, and it can change very quickly. So I don't think that'll be the expectation. But I am genuinely a little bit excited to see how he gets on because it could go either way.
I'm just going to quickly go on with the previous club, TSV Hartberg. It's a hard one because that team finished mid-table last season. So it's a bit, and it's no disrespect to the Austrian Bundesliga, but it is a big jump from mid-table in the Austrian Bundesliga to the Championship.
Yeah, I think that is probably the difference with Valerien Ismael coming from Lask and then this manager here is that we are talking about a side that were competing at the top end and in Europe regularly for Valerien Ismael. But then Hartberg got to Europe. They got their highest ever domestic finish under Markus Schopp. There's got to be an understanding that he has taken them to new heights. And if he can do that with Barnsley, then the only way up is to go to the Premier League. So I don't think that's going to happen straight away. But it's clear that they've taken a long-term view here. They're never worried about where their coaches have come from and how much experience they've got at the top level. They seem to be worried about how good a coach they are. And they seem to have a very, very good recruitment system in place for both coaches and for players. We have to be positive about this. I think it's going to be a good appointment. There is nothing in Barnsley's recent history to suggest any of the coaches or players they've got from here will be bad ones. So I don't think it's going to be a hurdle that he's managed at a slightly lower level, you may say, reputation-wise. I think he's going to do absolutely fine, and I don't think it'll be a negative factor in his role.
Exactly, and we have to go on to the current players at Barnsley at the moment. A few key players with them. Hopefully they could probably stay there for another year. Do you think they'll give him time with these, especially with these current players?
I think they will. I hope they will. But we've covered the Championship for long enough to know that if they lose their first 10 games and they're second bottom or bottom of the league, it's a very different story when you're in the situation. We saw that before with Barnsley. Daniel Stendel, after promotion, was then off after a few games because it didn't start particularly well. I do worry about Barnsley holding on to key players, and that's going to be crucial in whether they're going to have a slow start or not. I know they've got a bit of an experienced core now. Woodrow's been there a fair few years. The skipper, Alex Mowat, is a stalwart at the club. Defensively, though, they've had a lot more instability over the last couple of years. A lot of those key players were sold the first time when they came up to the Championship. And going forward, are people like Callum Styles going to get nabbed up? They've got some good young strikers at the club. I've mentioned Daryl DK going back to from his loan spell. He's going to be so hard to replace up there. I know Devante Cole's come in already, but it's big shoes to fill. So I think he will be given time, but we've seen it in the Championship on so many occasions before. All it takes is one bad run of games, and your plan of giving someone time, of giving someone 2 or 3 years to settle in and build a side goes out the window if you're 10 without a win.
Well, let's have a prediction on Barnsley for the next season. Let's start with, where do you think they will finish?
I hate to say it. In my opinion, there is no chance they will replicate the top 6 again, I'm afraid to say. They've lost the key man in that second half of the season who produced it going forward, Daryl DK. I mean, if you actually look at Barnsley, of the goal difference of the top 6, the worst after them was plus 17 of Swansea. Theirs was plus 8. They only just scored over a goal a game. They conceded just over a goal a game. But so many of those match winners, I think it's 7 occasions, Daryl DK scored the winner. And that is a massive problem for them to fill. If they can't get in a top quality striker or get DK back potentially, I don't think they're able to get the top 6. I think a lot of those wins might potentially turn into draws. And I can see them slipping down into a sort of solid but average mid-table position, maybe somewhere in the sort of 13th to 18th region, top half of the bottom half. I still think that's a decent season. I think for clubs like, and I hate to say it, but Barnsley, our team, Luton Town, that at the moment has to be the expectation is, let's make sure we stay up confidently. We're not in a relegation battle, and anything else, if you have a year like last year, enjoy the ride. It's a big bonus. But I think there's a bit too much to do in the recruitment terms. Again, there's only 5 weeks to the season. And for me, they need a centre forward and a couple of defenders to shore themselves up. I'm not sure they're going to be able to do all that and get them gelled in with a new style of play and with a new coach in time for the 7th of August.
I have to agree on the positioning. And don't get me wrong, we do like Barnsley. We've had a good relationship with Barnsley in the League One days. I would have said, but if it wasn't him, we don't know him. I would have said I'll probably go for Barnsley 10th, but after this, I'm not sure. So I have to go between 14th to 16th, Barnsley. But I think the main thing for Barnsley is we need that stability. I don't think he'll start well. Looking at his opening 4 fixtures, they're tough. Cardiff, Coventry, Luton, QPR. They're going to be 4 very tough games for Barnsley for the next season. I think that where he needs time. I agree on that. So I think Barnsley will be fine. I don't think anything special will happen to them. I just think they need the stability. Keep the finances going. They've obviously gained a lot of money from finishing the playoffs. Just keep that stability going, because they are a good Championship club.
I mean, one thing I do want to say, Craig, is that we made almost all of these mistakes in the Valerien Ismael episode just under a year ago.
Barnsley the champions.
We found our number 1.
No, honestly, I think they'll be delighted with 14th place. To be honest, if they're not delighted with 14th place, then what's wrong with you? I don't get it. Just stay in the Championship, for God's sake. And for me, even as a Luton fan, if they finish 14th next season in the Championship, I'll be delighted, because there's another year in the Championship. That is Barnsley. That's my prediction of Barnsley. One final question for me, Daniel. Will he get the 3 years?
Oh, you're getting good at asking me this, and this one's getting harder. Do you know what? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no, because I think at some point, and like you say, it might well be that start of the second season, because that's the pattern we've seen with Barnsley in recent years. They have a good year. They sell a couple of players. Their replacements don't hit the ground running, and then they have a poor run. So actually, I think they'll be okay this season. But then next season, they might start a bit more poorly. And I think then he'll probably be gone. So I'm going to go for him to last around a year and a half. I think he'll get through next season okay. I don't know if the fans will be completely happy, because it's so hard to temper your expectations after being in the playoffs. But yeah, I think he'll get through next year and then struggle the start of the season after.
I think it's just last year. Let's see how it goes. And I hope he does well. I'm not saying he should get sacked. But let us know what you think on Markus Schopp's appointment. at Barnsley. Do you agree with us or disagree with us where we think they will finish? Let us know in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, give this video a like, subscribe to the Honest Football Podcast, and you can follow us on Twitter at Honest Football Free. And we'll see you next time.